Welcome to the Global Gurus Podcast, a 15-minute conversation with thinkers who are shaping the future of leadership and business. Every episode, we're going to ask 3 questions, okay? What is the biggest problem you see right now? What is the original methodology? Because you're a guru, you have to have original methodology you've built to solve this problem. And how are you applying it to create measurable results in the real world? I am Arthur Carmazzi with my co-host here, Mark Nation, and we are joined by the beautiful, exciting, and very intelligent Laura Gassner Otting, who is she's a lot of things, but right now she is one of the motivational speaker gurus, the top 30 in the world, and probably somewhere in the top 10. Don't know exactly, but she is going to tell us a whole bunch of stuff about her things. Ready, Laura? Go.
I am ready. So should I answer the first question?
Answer the first question. So what is the biggest problem that you see right now?
So the biggest problem that I see is that we're living in times of disruption, of growth, of layoffs, of culture shifts, of hybrid work, of collapsing trust. And inside of that, we think that all we need to do is motivate people more. Now, I know I say this as like a motivational keynote guru, but what I want to say is that motivation isn't necessarily it. The problem is that we're using these operating systems from yesterday in order to solve tomorrow's problems, and we are not going through the identity shift that growth demands of us in order to become everything that we want to become to solve the problems in the world that we want to solve. Awesome.
Okay, and so what's your specific methodology? How do you change? How do you create internal motivation from the from organizations and people that you work with?
So I am 100% convinced that you cannot be insatiably hungry for someone else's goals. And here's what's happening. We're all walking around holding this like definition, this scorecard of success that somebody else handed us at some point. Like when I was in 2nd grade, my teacher said, you're a pretty argumentative young woman. You should become a lawyer. And of course, the first thing I said to her was, well, I think you're wrong because I'm argumentative, right? In my brain, I subconsciously created this pathway that like becoming a lawyer is success. And so I created this pathway to get me to law school, where on the very first day I looked around and I was like, this is a huge mistake. I ended up spending 20 years in executive search. And my job in executive search was to call the most successful people in the world and recruit them away on behalf of my clients, right? All of you leaders listening, I am the phone call you dread your people getting. Like I call people to recruit them away. But here's the thing, despite all that success, which is why I was calling them, they weren't very happy. So they all called me back. And I became fascinated about this question about why success doesn't equal happiness. And I started looking at my career and I looked at all the people who I was not able to recruit away. And what I realized is that at 15, 16, 17 years old, we're handed this definition of success. Pick a path, pick a major, pick a trade, pick a college, and we go, okay. And then we do that. But what we don't have at 15, 16, 17 years old is a frontal lobe, like the actual part of our brain that dictates good, sound, logical decision-making. And so we create a path for the rest of our lives, and we never give ourselves grace to change it. And so what I realized is that it's not pursuing success necessarily, it's pursuing consonance, this alignment, this flow where everything you do matches everything you are. And my methodology includes 4 things: calling, connection, contribution, and control. So quickly, calling. Calling is this gravitational force that gets you out of bed in the morning. It's the inspiration. It's the leader you want to serve, the problem you want to solve, the business you want to build, the family you want to nurture. Connection. Does the work I'm doing on a daily basis connect me to that calling? Contribution. How does this work, this job, this paycheck, this flexibility, this logo contribute to the way that I want to live my life and the life that I want to have, the career I want to build, the way I want to manifest my values? And then finally, control. How much control do I personally have at this moment in time to affect how much that work connects to my calling and how much it contributes to my life? And every one of us at different ages and different stages needs different amounts of each of these things.
Wow, that's brilliant. Fascinating. So if we go back to calling, the very first thing, it really is true. So many times we have these labels that people give us, and it feels true, and maybe even winds up being true. Maybe you wind up being an attorney, Maybe you don't. Maybe you want to be a public speaker because oratory is really important. But we're developing all the time. And so to talk about calling, it's kind of like purpose. It's so big, it can be so amorphous. And if you think, well, what's the meaning of my life when you're 18 or 22 or 30 or 50? It can be huge, a huge challenge, I think, when you're young. So is calling more of a discovery or more of an uncovery?
Well, I think what we get wrong about calling is we call it a calling, my calling, the calling, a purpose, right? As if there's one, like somebody from on high comes over and like, ding, there's your calling. And suddenly you know. And if you don't have it, you're like, oh, well, I don't have a calling. I'm still searching for my calling. I want to follow my passion. I have to find my passion. I think follow your passion is the spoken word illegitimate sister of the live, laugh, love tattoo. It is terrible advice. Like you can't just find it and follow it. That means the first time you get rejected, the first time somebody turns you down, the first time your worst employee, stays and your best, client leaves, you're like, this must not be my calling. I guess I should do something else. So we have to invest in our passion. We have to invest in our calling. And now we know we have 10,000 results from 113 different countries, every possible demographic, every possible industry in an online assessment, limitlessassessment.com, that we've been running since January of 2019. So before, during, and after the pandemic. And the data that we have from that is stunning, because you would think, oh, everybody went through this quiet resignation, this quiet quitting because they suddenly in the pandemic decided they wanted more purpose. No, it turns out people have wanted purpose forever. From January 2019 till current, the amount of people who say, I want inspiration to be part of what gets me up every day has remained steady at 93% or higher. Since before the pandemic, this is a universal fact, whether you're in nonprofits, the government sector, for-profits, it is universal. What is different is that everybody defines inspiration and calling differently. So you may say, I grew up on food stamps, so I am inspired to make enough money so that my children can make different decisions than I had to make. Or you may say, I lost my mother to cancer, so I am inspired to go research, diagnosis for cancer. Or you may say the highest and best use of my time, because I am a math whiz, is to trade, bonds on Wall Street so I can make enough money to donate to that cancer, right? Like every one of these callings or purposes are good. And we all get our own vote on that. But at every age and at every stage, our calling, our purpose, what inspires us should change. We just don't let it, because we get so stuck in this identity of who we are, the narrative identity, the stories we tell ourselves of, I wear the white hat, I wear the black hat. And, and in the United States, I wear the red hat, or like whatever people's identities are, that we don't want to change. Because once something becomes your identity, you will cling to it with every fiber of your being. And the last thing I'll say is, there are studies that show that people who say, I smoke, are far more likely to quit than people who say, I am a smoker. What's the difference? I smoke is just something you do. It's a habit. Whereas I smoke is an identity. So disentangling purpose and calling from identity is the first stop to really thinking about, well, what's going to make me feel fulfilled now at this age and at this life stage?
Brilliant. So now, do you with some of this research, do you also find that people kind of started out with a direction, but then because of different stuff that happened in their lives, they kind of went off? And is your methodology helping them to kind of get back on that track, to find their core identity, their true self, the people they see themselves really wanting to be, but kind of maybe gave up on?
Absolutely. In fact, I can tell you that in 20 years of interviewing people in executive search, and I interviewed thousands of leaders in massive moments of career shift and incredible, terrifying moments of organizational disruption, I can tell you that the most interesting people, in fact, actually, I'll go so far as to say the only interesting people that I interviewed are the ones that made left turns and right turns and U-turns, because those are the moments where they stopped and they looked in the mirror and they said, what have I been doing well? What have I loved? What excites me? What brings out my best? Where do I shine the most? And what doesn't? And how do I double down on the first and reduce as much as possible the second? And so when they make that shift, they bring so much more of themselves to work. So I said earlier that 93% or higher want inspiration to be part of what brings them to work every day. We also have a very terrifying statistic that says something like 36% of people actually work for a leader who inspires them. That's kind of terrifying, right? So if people want inspiration, but most of us don't get it from our leader, then clearly the leaders have something that they need to do about. They need to do some work. And leaders who are not themselves excited and inspired are not going to excite and inspire other people.
Yeah, very true. So how are you getting measurable results? I mean, you're doing keynote talks. What else do you do, Laura, that, just makes people find themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of writing for Oprah Daily, for Harvard Business Review. I'm an ABC contributor. I'm Good Morning America as their career and workplace expert. I do a ton of keynote speaking, but mostly I spend a lot of time with leaders, a lot of one-on-one conversations where I tell them things like, I'll give you some more details from that study that we've done. I can tell you that bad leaders bleed out good people. Like, duh, we know that. You didn't have to listen to Global Guru's Thought Leadership in 15 minutes to find out that bad leaders lose people. What we found, though, is that people who self-report, I work for a good leader, a leader who's respected, who people trust, who gets good results, who's done the training. I work for a good leader, but I have no relationship with that leader, are just as likely to leave as people who tell us they work for a bad leader. So what's the difference? How do I get measurable results with my clients through keynotes and consulting and coaching, et cetera, by helping them understand that there is a million miles between being loved and being seen. So if you're loved, like, I love you, you've done great work, congratulations, here's your promotion, here's the corner office, here's a raise, great, you feel loved in the office. But do you feel really seen? Does your boss know what actually makes you tick, what you really care about? And if you're a leader and you're thinking, well, I don't know if this applies to me, I would say, do you have a salesperson? Do you have somebody who's leading revenue in your team who every 6 months or so shows up in your office with that, like, what have you done for me lately face, right? And you're like, I got to hit the easy button. Maybe I'll just give them a raise. Maybe I'll give them a promotion. Maybe I'll give them whatever they want because they're leading revenue. My question is this: why are they doing the work they do? Do they care about this product because it affected their life in some way? Are they able to do this job and be home at dinner every night at 6 p.m. because their kids in middle school and going through a tough time? Does your corporate give back program, your philanthropy, work with a charity that they care about? Like, what is the thing that matters to them about this brand, this organization, this logo, this mission, the team that they're on? What is it building for them in their life, in their career? And once you understand that, then suddenly you can have a conversation that's real, but why they're doing this work, what they actually care about, who they are as a person. And until we get to that space where we're no longer looking at what we used to look at in recruiting as, the mission, the leadership, the money, the prestige on the resume, the skills, like, what are the things that motivate people for a job? Is this a good job? But is this a good job for you? That comes back to calling, connection, contribution, and control.
Wow.
Love it. Always pursue our highest and best use and seek that for others. It's one of the phrases you use, which I love. Highest and best use. Laura, tell people where they can find you.
So my name is Laura Gassner Otting. It's a lot of names, so all my friends call me LGO. You can find me on all the socials at LGO.com or lauragassnerotting.com. And if you're interested in taking the assessment, that's at limitlessassessment.com.
Wow, that's fantastic. So what else? I mean, because we got like less than a minute, but what you're talking about is so important. So what would be like one last thing that one little bit of advice that you could give a leader to basically be better?
I would say if you're a leader, your job is to talk, is to tell people, is to give them answers. But really, your job should be listening. You should be asking more questions. And if you're not asking more questions than making statements, you're not getting to know your people. So go into work tomorrow morning and ask more questions.
Awesome. Okay, so I guess that's it. Okay, Mark, you want to close it?
Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you, Arthur, and appreciate you joining it with Global Guru's Thought Leadership in 15 minutes, where it's 3 questions, 1 methodology, and real results. Take care, everyone. Thanks, Laura.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.